All right, so homework 4, chapter 2 has a whole lot to do with graphs and charts and those kind of things. First one is just interpreting a pie chart. So my pie chart, if I have everything in it, is 100%. Just as some common benchmarks, if I have my circle and I divide it up into fourths, if I could draw, that would be about 1/4. So this is going to be a lot of estimating about how much this is. So it says, which department accounts for approximately 1/5 of the annual budget? So 1/5 going to be just a little smaller than 1/4, right? So we're going to look there, and which one looks like it's just a little bit smaller than 1/4? Engineering, exactly. The drop down is going to have all these choices. You're going to pick that one. I'm just going to abbreviate for right now. It looks like English. It's engineering. Then the next one says approximately what percent of the annual budget is used for both sales and research combined. So if I look at sales and research, looks like about what percent? 50. It's half of my pie chart, right? So 50% would be half of my pie chart, 50%. The next one, they're giving you choices of what numbers to pick, because sometimes it might be at 8%, but you're going to round it to whatever it's closest to. If 10% of the annual budget is media, so they're telling you this is 10%. Approximately what percent is used for engineering? If this is 10, that one looks like it's about how much bigger? 20. Besides, this one up here was 1/5, and 1/5 is the same thing as 20%, right? So just taking your pie chart, estimating those values based on what you know. Half my pie chart's 50%, 1/4 of it is 25%, etc. So on number 2, which category was chosen by approximately 1/4 of the community? So which one looks like it's about 1/4?
Bird.
The bird, yep. Bird looks like it's about 1/4. What percent of the community chose fish or none? So fish or none looks like about what? And they're going to round it off to a multiple of 10. If we compare it to the bird, is it bigger or smaller than the bird? This much here, does that look like it's a bigger section or a smaller section than this one here? It's a little bit smaller, right? This is 1/4. 1/4 is 25%. So since this one's a little bit smaller than that, we would say it's going to be 20%, right? 30% would be about 1/3 of the pie chart, so the cat looks like it might be 30%. 15% of my community chose fish. So this section here is 15%. We want to estimate what percent chose that none. 5. Looks like it's about 1/3 of the fish, right? So 5% would have been choosing none. So number 3 here, it says we have a recent phone survey. People were asked to state their favorite type of television show. Which category was chosen by approximately 1/3 of those surveyed?
News.
News looks like it's 1/3, right? Approximately what percent of those surveys chose other or drama? So other or drama would be that much of my pie chart. Again, these ones are rounded off to the nearest 10. So we would say that one looks like it's about 30%, exactly. That's about the same size as my 1/3. 1/3 would actually be a little bit bigger because it's 33 1/3. And if 8% of those surveys chose sports, so this little section here we know is 8%. What percent chose drama? So up here's drama. How much bigger does that look than our 8%? So our choices are 3, 12, 24, or 300.
24.
Probably the 24, right? The other ones don't even look like they'd make sense for what we have there. So it's about 3 times bigger, 24%. So you're just going to do some estimating on those, looking at my pie chart. Now we're actually going to do some computations from our pie charts. And we're working with our percent formula. So when we do our percent formula, we're going to take the percent times the total to equal the part. If you took algebra, we did these in algebra class, but I get to remind you again. So sometimes it will ask me for the total. Sometimes it's going to say, how much did I spend on these 2 or 3 things? So 2 different ways we may do this problem. It says the pie chart below shows how the total annual income for a certain family is spent. The amount budgeted for auto, housing, and insurance is $50,000. What was the total family income? So this question asks for what is the total. We know the part then is the $50,000. The percent we got to figure out. We have auto at 12%, housing at 27%, and insurance at 11%. So we're going to start by adding 27 plus 11 plus 12. Gives us how much?
$50.
50%. So if I plug that into my formula, I'm saying 50%, which as a decimal we have to use 0.50 or 0.5. 50% times my total is equal to my part, which was the $50,000. If I want to solve that for t, I end up doing what? If I want to solve this for t, what do I have to do? Divide by my 50%, right? So we're going to take our $50,000 and divide it by our 50%. We get 100,000. You maybe knew that without doing any calculations because 50% would have been half. If half of it was 50,000, the whole thing would have been 100,000, right? So on number 5, this time it says the pie chart shows how the total annual income for a certain family is spent. The total annual income is $105,000. That's the total. We want to know how much did they spend on just auto and food. So we're looking for the part. So again, we're going to take auto, which is 15%, and food, which is 17%, and add those together. If I add those together, I get 32%. I'm going to take 32% times the total. This time they gave us the total. 105,000. We're looking for the part that they spent on those 2 things. Right? I can't spend more than I have budgeted or that I make. Or at least hopefully I'm not spending more than I make. So if you take 0.32 times 105,000, we end up with you got what?
32,600.
There you go. 33,600. They're not going to have you do any rounding. Should get $33,600. So my total was $105,000 for my income. I spent $33,600 on food and auto. So number 6, the pie chart below shows how the annual budget for a certain company is divided by department. If the total budget is $75 million, what amount is budgeted for sales, media, and editorial? So what would I do in order to figure that out? We're going to add up our sales, our media, and our editorial. 20 plus 7 plus 3 gives us 30%. 30% times our total, and our total is 75 million, should then equal the part. And you'll know if you do the wrong thing by multiplying or dividing. Hopefully when you look at your answer, you know if it makes sense. I can't have an answer that's bigger than 75 million, right? You got how much? 22,500,000. I suppose I should put some dollar signs on that. $22,500,000. So if it says find the total, you end up dividing. If you're finding the part spent on 2 or 3 things, you're going to end up multiplying. Number 7 then. Now we're going to look at some bar charts. See if I can get the whole thing on here at one time. Double bar charts, in fact. Burns Corporation has 4 departments. The double bar graph below shows how many male and female employees are in each department. Use this graph to answer the questions. So the males are the solid ones in blue in this case. The females have the stripes through them since yours isn't in color like mine is. And we're just going to use the graph to answer the question. Estimate the number of males in production. Over here's production. It's slightly higher than 200, right? So we're just going to get somewhere close. What do you think that looks like? 210, okay? If you put 205 or 208, it's going to still count it right as long as you're close. You're estimating. Which department have more females than males? Check all that apply. Which one has more females? There's only one. Accounting in this case. Accounting. Again, we're estimating. Estimate the total number of employees in marketing. So I'm going to do both of those together. I would have about 205. Again, since it's an estimating one, as long as you're close, they're going to count it correct. High Bite Entertainment sells 4 types of products: radios, DVDs, video games, and CDs. The numbers sold for and are shown in the double bar graph below. Use this graph to answer the question. So we have our years in 2015 and in 2016. Which product sold more in 2016 than in 2015? We got a few of them. Multiple answers here. Which ones have more in 2016? Radios, the video games, and the CDs all have more in 2016, right? My bars are higher. Which products have fewer than 800 sold in 2016? So just looking at the 2016, which ones are fewer than 800? Radios, video games, and the CDs. All of those are less than 800. The only one higher than 800 would be your DVDs. Now we're back to some estimating. Estimate the total number of CDs sold in the 2 years. Oh, are we doing all the 2 years? Oh, CDs. Total number of CDs. There we go. Estimate the total number of CDs. What does it look like we've got? How much? 500 and... probably a little higher than 50, right? 50 would be halfway up. What did I put? I put 580 when I answered it. Not how far, but where were we at? Over here? It's almost up to the top, right? It's not too far from the 400. 300 would be halfway between, and I look like I'm at least another halfway between that. So somewhere in there, 375, 360, 380, it's probably going to take any of those, as long as you're somewhere close. slide that a little bit more. Whoops, we almost got it. Small computer company runs 4 manufacturing plants, each of which produces 2 models of computer laser printers, Model A and Model B. The double bar graph shows the number of printers of each model produced during the last year. Use the graph to answer the questions. So A is the dark one again, B is the striped one. Estimate the number of Model B printers produced at the Riverton plant. So Model B looks like about 210. Sounds good. Which plants produce more Model B printers than Model A printers? So which ones have more Model Bs? Just the beach is the only one that has more Model B, right? And which plant produced the fewest printers total? The west side looks like it has the fewest total, exactly. All right, so just reading the graph, nothing too terribly bad there, hopefully. Could be worse. All right. We're going to do a technology activity. Just right in the middle of your thing. So I'm going to grab you some graphing calculators. Now some of our technology things we will do on Excel, and others we will do on the graphing calculator. These yellow calculators we have to charge on the charger, but if you do need to take a graphing calculator home, I've got some of the battery ones for you to use too. Might need one more for me to punch. These ones have color and all that fun stuff. Now, the first half of the semester, we're going to use the graphing calculators, etc., but on your assessments, you're not going to be able to use the graphing calculator. The second half of the semester, once we've practiced the formulas for standard deviation and all that fun stuff, then I will let you use the graphing calculator on the assessments. So, general information. To turn your calculator on, press the on key. That's pretty obvious. To turn it off, you have to do second function and then off. That turns the calculator off. To reset the calculator, if we would need to, second function and the memory key, which is the plus key. We probably don't need to reset it, but if you did. To adjust your contrast or your brightness, second function and hold the up or down arrow if your screen isn't bright enough. Clear, obviously you can hit clear. That's underneath the little arrow keys. And to return to the home screen, that's the one you might want to remember. Second function quit, which is the mode button. So it's right next to the second function button, in case you're on a graph and you want to go back to the regular screen. So, we are going to do some things where we have a big long list of data and we have to sort the data. Yeah, we could sort it paper pencil, but we're going to practice sorting it both with our graphing calculator and using Excel. So, you have a button that says Stat on it. It's for statistics. Find the button that says Stat. Should be the third row down in the third column. Stat. If you hit that, you see Edit, Calc, Test, and then 1 is Edit, 2 is Sort A, which is ascending, 3 is Sort D, which is descending, 4 is Clear List, 5 is Setup Editor. So, we are going to either enter or press 1 to select the edit. If there is data in list 1, cursor up so list 1 is highlighted, then clear and enter, and that should clear out your list. Right now you probably don't have any data in there because these are new calculators and so nobody's probably used them for this yet. Enter your data in list 1. So just go ahead and put some values in there, not in order, just put a bunch of numbers in. So I'm going to put in 20, hit enter, 15, hit enter, 6, hit enter, 85, hit enter, and just put a bunch in there in any random order. So once you have your numbers in there, you're going to hit Stat to go back to the Edit menu. Oh, they're having you go back to the screen. And then they had you go second function quit, which I don't know why we want to do that, but they did it anyway. They told us to do that. That just gets you back. Your data's still in there in that list, but now they're going to have you sort the data. So, whoops. If I am going to sort the data then, I really didn't have to go all the way out. They just told me to. What I would do after I have my data entered into list 1, which we did, we're going to hit Stat again. And then we're going to pick number 2, which says Sort A. Now we have to tell us which list to sort. Since we put our data in list 1, we're going to put list 1 in there. And so to do that, you hit the second function button, and then you're going to hit number 1. Notice above the 1 key, list 1 is in blue. So you're going to hit second and the number 1, and then you should see the little L1 show up there. You can close your parentheses. You don't really have to. They're telling you you can close the parenthesis if you want. I'll close it for fun. And then we are going to hit Enter. It should tell you done. It sorted it. Well, we don't know that it sorted it until we go back and look back at our list. So now we're just going to basically repeat where we started. We have to get back to our list. So we're going to hit the Stat button. And then we're going to hit 1 for the Edit, which is where we entered our list in. And now you should see your numbers in list 1 are all sorted in a nice order, right? Yes, no, maybe. So now we are going to sort this big long list, because if I had how many ever numbers, must be 20 on that list, I may or may not want to sort them by hand. So you have that list on your paper if you're following along. We're going to enter in all this data, but before we enter it in, we got to clear our data list. So what we're going to do, cursor up so that you're highlighting L1, the whole list, and then just hit the clear button, which is underneath your arrow keys. Then you're going to hit Enter, and then that whole list should clear out. Okay? Now we're going to go ahead and put all our numbers from this list in there. We also have them on the paper here, if that's easier to read. Got them all in there? What I like to do once I have them typed in is highlight the bottom one and just check. Notice it has L120. We knew we had 20 numbers, so I know I hopefully didn't skip any numbers because I've got 20 of them on my list, right? So now we have to sort them. We're going to sort them. We're going to hit Stat. I don't have to go back out to the home screen. I could just hit Stat. We are going to do number 2 and put in there list 1. So second function, the number 1 to get your L1. Close your parenthesis, hit Enter so that you see done. And so now if I go back to Stat and number 1 for Edit, my list should show up in order, and it says write down the data in order. So what do you got? We got nothing? Didn't I give you a calculator?
Yeah, but it won't. These buttons don't work, and it keeps going
These
to.
buttons? Oh, wait a minute. You're way off.
Yeah.
Let's get you back to where you should be. Second function, quit. So you're supposed to be using this button right here, not the Stat plot, but the Stat button.
Okay.
You got to holler at me sooner. We'll practice some more, don't worry. But
So just enter them,
so you just enter all of those in under list
with
one.
like 25 plus 22.
Not plus, but just enter.
Okay.
So 25, enter, 22, enter, 18, enter.
Oh, shoot.
Now, you may notice that you can't see all 20 of them, that you have to cursor down to get to the rest of your numbers. 23, 23, 23. Did I have just 3 of those? Yep. 4, 20. If I got them all, that should be my list, right?
I just didn't know how to go back without going. Okay, what do you do after this?
Okay, so do you have them in there?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just go ahead and clear that mess that's on that screen. Okay, we are going to do stat. And then you're going to do the 2 for sort. And then to get list 1 in there, you do second function and the number 1 button. If you notice above that in blue is L1. Okay, and then enter. Says it's done. Now if you hit stat again, go to 1 for edit. Now you're, oh, you didn't have your list all the way in there. You get your numbers all over the place. Notice you had some things here and some things over
what,
here.
What the heck are those?
So this one's in list 1, these ones are in list 2.
I know I didn't enter any numbers, so.
So, if they came in there and you didn't want them in there, we would highlight that and clear it and hit enter. And then go over to list 1. Oops, to highlight list 1, you gotta go up. There you go, and click delete and enter. There, now I don't know how those got in there. Because it should have been your 25, 22,
I
18.
did take those. I don't know how 6 and 7 and 8 are.
I don't know how you got those in there either.
Okay, so where do I go now?
So, let's type those in.
So,
25,
25.
22, and enter. 22, 18, 35, 37, 34, 31, 27, 24, 21, 26, 26 again, 3 23s, 3 20s, and 2 17s. All right, now that we have our list in there, now we're going to hit stat and go to sort, so number 2. Now we're going to sort list 1, so second function in the number 1, and enter, so it says done, and then go back to our list. So stat, and 1 for edit. Now your list should be in order. All right?
Oh, okay, cool.
So on your paper, you're supposed to write your data down in order.
So,
You'll see why this will come in handy in a minute. On the next ones, if you are going to use Excel to sort your data, we're going to open Excel. So, Excel, if it's not up towards the top, might be under the office things, but mine's up here in Excel 2016. And we're just going to open up a blank worksheet. Where's my thing that says I want to open up a blank one? It's still thinking.
a blank workbook?
Yeah. Oh, right there, blank workbook. All right. Now, unfortunately, if I go back over to my list of numbers, I can't just highlight them and copy them because it doesn't go up and down in my list. I'm going to copy them anyway. But if I copy and I paste, just to show you, it goes like that. We actually have to put them in a column. So, I'm going to undo that and I'm going to move them over to the side and paste them. Control V, by the way, paste. That way I can see. That way I can see my list without having to jump back and forth between my paper. So we're going to type those numbers all in column A. 7, enter, 2, enter, and so forth. 37. Got those typed in?
Yeah.
All right, so it says then, type your list in. I'm going to use column A. Click and drag from the first value to the last so they are highlighted. So I'm going to go over here and just click and drag and highlight those values, which I've got over here. Then you'll notice up at the top there's a sort and filter. So if I go sort and filter, I want to go smallest to largest. Bang, there they are in order.
No. I close like so.
Oh.
But you said you put sort in order or whatever?
Yep, you go sort and filter and just go from smallest to largest, and then it should sort them and put them in order for you.
Okay.
Easy as that. And then of course I wrote over here, write your data in order.
That's like easier than the calculator.
Probably is. Using Excel to count data, this is again something you probably don't have to do, but if you were wondering, actually now on 2016 you can highlight them and it actually does the count down on the bottom. Way down here it says count 22. Previous versions of Excel didn't always have that option, so if I wanted to count, what I would do is type in equal and then count. Yep. And then put parenthesis, or your first parenthesis. And then I would highlight those cells. Close my parenthesis. If I could, oh, I have to probably enter first. Click something. Oh, I didn't click down there. There we go. Close my parenthesis, and when I hit enter, it says, oh, I got 22 of them. So, used to have to do that. Now you can just highlight them and down at the bottom of the screen you can do the count. Just for fun. What was that?
I catch it.
All right, so over here, if I go over here, if I was going to count my data, I'm going to type in equal, the word count, and put the first parenthesis. I'll do it again over here in Excel. So equal, the word count, and then my first parenthesis. Then what I'm going to do is highlight my list. So from the top to the bottom, make sure you click on the bottom so that it stays there. Then you're just going to close your parenthesis, hit enter, and it's going to count. There's 22 numbers on the list. There's still 22.
So are we gonna have to use Excel, whatever, for like assignments and stuff? Like we'd have to turn it into you?
Yes, later you will. Because we're going to draw some pie charts and some histograms and some stuff like that.
Fun.
So that's why you need to know how to sort and all this other stuff. But I'm going to give you directions. So, write what numbers in the cell. You hopefully wrote 22 down. We have 22 numbers in our list. So, why in the heck do we want to have to do that? Because we are going to do some graphing of different kind of things. The first one is a histogram. A histogram looks like a bar graph, but a histogram doesn't have any spaces between the bar. A bar graph has spaces. A histogram is just like a bar graph, it just doesn't have any spaces. So, we have a big long list of data. It says draw the histogram for these data using initial class boundary of 0.5 and an ending class boundary of 45.5, a class or 5 classes of each width. So, when we do our class boundaries, they're always halfway between the whole number values, because if I have 27 and I put it right in the middle of my thing, I wouldn't know does it go on the first bar or the second bar. So when you do your boundaries, it's always halfway between and at a 0.5, so that if you have 27, you know it goes in before 27.5 and after 26.5. So that's why they have you do the class values with halfway in between. We have to figure out on our bars how many bars we're going to put in our graph. So first thing we're going to do is just subtract. Our end is going to be at 45.5. Our starting is 0.5, which means we're going to have 40 numbers in our data set. We want to have 5 classes or 5 bars, so we're going to divide by 5, which means each of our classes are going to have 8 values in them. I'm going to slide this down just a hair. There we go. So on Alex, they are going to make you put in the values. Notice they have the little 2 breaks here. That means you're not starting exactly at 0. In this case, we're starting at 0.5, right? That's where we started. Our next class or our next value, because we figured out that each of them had to be 8, we're going to add 8 to 0.5. So this one would be at 8.5. The next one is going to be at 8 more than that, 16.5. The next one would be then at
24.
There we go, 24.5. The next one would be at 32.5. Now you notice we're not to where we're supposed to end, and our thing changes because there's only 1, 2, 3, 4 sections, and it told us we were doing 5. So you can add or remove sections. We'd have to click on the add sections. It would add the next little category over here, and so when I add my section, now I'm going to end up with, I didn't close my email, 40, whoop. You take attendance. Yeah, I did that already. Now is it going to let me close it? It'll probably erase everything I wrote. I don't want to do that. I just want to close this. No. All right. 0.5, 8.5, 16.5, 24.5, 32.5, and 45.5 must have been. Whoops, is that where I was at? 40. 40.5. Is that where it told me to end?
Yeah.
No, it told me to end at 45.5.
What? Why?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What did I do wrong?
8, 6.
Because I didn't subtract right. That's why you guys didn't yell at me. I can't subtract. That's what I did wrong.
What?
I had 45.5 and I subtracted 0.5 and I wrote 40 and it should have been 45. That's what I did wrong.
Oh.
You guys gotta yell at me sooner when I screw
didn't
up
even-
like that. All right, so if I divide that by my 5 equal classes, I really should have been doing 9. See, I knew I made a mistake because I didn't end up with the right number. All right, so 0.5, 9.5, 18.5, 27.5, 36.5, and then we should end up at our 45.5. All right. So now, what you have to do is figure out how many values you have between 0.5 and 9.5. So to make your life a little simpler, if you wish, you could put your data into either Excel or your graphing calculator and sort it in order so that it makes it easier to count. Otherwise, you can go up there and just cross numbers off as you find them. I hid my calculator. Not that one. I don't know what I did with it. There it is. All right. So that I don't have to clear the board out, I'm going to put it in on here. But if you prefer to put it in on Excel, put it in on Excel. So.
Oh, those numbers up there?
Those numbers up there, hopefully, they're on your paper, so hopefully you can read them off your paper if I cut them off a little bit, but I was trying to get the whole screen on there.
Are we gonna put them in list 1 though?
List 1. You could put them in list 2 if you really wanted to. Then you sort list 2 instead of sorting list 1.
Okay.
How do we get to list 2?
List 2 is right next to list 1, so if you cursor over, you could have put them in there, but we can just clear out list 1 since we don't need those. So you highlight list 1 and then hit clear and then enter. Then they're all gone. Then type all those numbers in. And it says we should have 22. So if you highlight the bottom one, once you get them all in, you have L1 and in parentheses it should say 22. And your last number was the 24. That way you know you didn't miss any of them. So once you have all your numbers in, sort them. See if you remember how to sort.
Oh, shit.
Or if you can read directions off the paper from before.
Okay. I think I need calculator. Alright, how do you go back into the list?
Do hit stat and 1.
Okay, so I type in all the numbers right
Okay,
here.
so then you are going to do stat and 2 for sort, and then you'll do second function and hit number 2, which is list 2, exactly. Do just second, there we go, you don't do them both at the same time, hit second, then hit 2. Okay, now if you enter, should say it's done. Now if you go back to stat and 1 for edit, then you should have them all in a nice list in a row.
My screen went to something I don't know.
Okay, if your screen goes something you didn't know, just go back to, oh, it went to some kind of error that you had. Go hit number 2, go to where you left off. So number 2. And okay, you didn't get list 1, you just got a number 1. So you have to hit second and then the number 1. So it has L1 for list 1. Now enter. Okay, now go to stat. 1 for edit. And now your list should be in order. So why did we do all that work? Because it probably makes it easier for us to count. We want to find all the values that are between 0.5 and 9.5. So in other words, less than 9. How many values do you have that's less than 9?
4.
4. So we're going to grab this thing here and we're just going to pull it up and it's going to make a bar and we're going to drop it wherever 4 is at. I'm going to write a 4 there just so I know I made it up to 4 because I'm probably not drawing very straight. Then we're going to check how many numbers do we have between 9.5 and 18.5. In other words, 10 to 18. I only have 2. So I'm going to grab the little bar, pull it up 2 spots, and I've got 2 there man, I can't even draw straight. Oh well. Then the next section we have from 18.5 to 27.5. So in other words, from 19 to 27.
4.
4. So we're gonna grab that and pull it up to 4, wherever that might be. That's way too high. 4. And then from 27.5 to 36.5, so from 28 to 36.
9.
9 of them. 9, that's way up here. And then we are going to go from 36.5 to 45.5. In other words, from 37 to 45.
3.
3. If I take my 4 plus my 2 plus my 4 plus my 9 plus my 3, it should add up to the 22 values. I always like to double check to make sure. Now if I'm on my list and I don't want my list, to get right back to the regular mode, you hit second function and then the mode which says quit above it, and then that's where you can type to do problems. I could do 4 plus 2 plus 4 plus 9 plus 3, and it tells me I have 22, so I know that I counted all my numbers because we had 22 numbers on our list. So whenever you do a histogram, you'll notice on the boundaries, my boundaries will always be by 0.5s, so I know for sure which section my numbers go in.
So where do you go, like, okay, so I did like the second and then the quit. Like, how do you go back to this?
To the list, you just hit stat
To
again.
do just like regular like typing in like.
That's what you do. That's the screen you do it on. When you do second function quit, that's the screen, and then you just type in or do your math problems or whatever. You could clear it out first if you wanted to, but if I was doing 5 times 6, whatever it might be, that's my regular screen. When I do second function quit, it's called the home screen.
Okay.
All right, number 11 then. Below are the times and days it takes for a sample of 23 customers from Jack's Computer Store to pay their invoices. This time it says draw the histogram for these data using initial class boundary of 13.5 and a class width of 7. Notice it doesn't tell you how many that you have. You have to figure out where your ending number is going to be. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and put all my data in, sort it out so I know what my highest number is going to be. I could find it if I searched through all those numbers, but since I'm probably going to sort them anyway. So stat, 1 for edit. Again, if you want to clear the list, highlight the name of the list, list 1, list 2, list 3, hit clear and then hit enter, and it should take all your values out of your list. And then we can type them all in. And once you have them in, sort them, and then scroll down to the bottom to see what your highest number is.
So that's second, or is that stat?
Stat, get to your list. 2 to sort, yep. List 1, I'm assuming you put them in, so you have to do second, and then the number 1, and enter. And then go back to stat.
Oh shit.
1 for edit to see your list, and they should be in order. So now if you use cursor down all the way to the bottom, the biggest value is what's the biggest number you got on your list? Should be the very bottom one now that we sorted it. 43. So we know that when we're doing our boundaries, that once we get past 43, we can stop. Again, we may have to add or remove sections. So we're going to start this time with 13.5. Tells us we have an initial class boundary. That's our starting one. Each of them are going to have a class width of 7. So I'm going to add 7 to my 13.5 and I would get 20.5 for our next one, right? The 13.5 plus the 7, which is my class width. My next one is going to be what?
27.
27.5, because I'm going to add 7, right? My next one would be
34.
34.5.
41.
My 41.5. We can't quit yet because we have to go to 43, so we're going to do 48.5. And so again, we'd have to add a section because we didn't have enough spaces. And now we have to figure out. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in here, 5 sections. We'll just go around. You want to do the first section, the second, third, fourth, and fifth? Yeah, you noticed that, right? So you're going to do the first one between the 13.5 and the 20.5. You're going to do the second one. Mariah's going to do the third, fourth, and you're going to do the last one. That way we don't each have to add, and we can get this done a little faster. You don't even have to do the adding, you have to count. How many are in your section? So, in the section from 13.5 to 20.5, how many numbers did you have?
4.
4. I didn't even look yet. 4. 4 is right there. I'm going to draw that up to 4. All right. Between 20.5 and 27.5, we had 2. Just 2 in that section, so make that one go up to 2. Mariah, between the 27.5 and the 34.5? 6 of them. That's probably too high, but I'm going to put a 6 there so you know it was really supposed to be at 6. Between the 34.5 and the 41.5? 9. Ooh, we get to go all the way up to 9. And my last section, we had how many?
So,
None in the last section? There's got to be something in the last section or we wouldn't have gone that far. There's one number there, right?
yeah.
Oh, no, 2 numbers, 42 and 43. 42 and 43 are both in that section. 2 numbers. So again, I just like to double check myself. I hit second function and quit to get back to the home screen, and then I add up all my numbers. 4 plus 2 plus 6 plus 9 plus 2 gives me 23. I had 23 numbers on my list, so I probably got them all. 4 plus 2 plus 4 plus 9 plus 3. Yep. Or plus 2 plus 6 plus 9 plus 2. All right. One more of those. Oop, got my marker in my hand. Doesn't like me. So, number 12, we have shopping times in minutes of 20 shoppers. We're going to go ahead, put our list in, list 1, sort it out. That one clear. So this one says draw the histogram for these data with an initial class boundary of 20.5 and an ending class boundary of 45.5 and a class and 5 classes of equal width. So this is like the first one. We know we're going to start at 20.5 and we know the end's going to be at 45.5, but we have to figure out how much is between each of those. What did we do? How did we find what our class width was?
If I listen everything to the cart, mine on the cart.
You guys are either working or you don't know. So what we had to do is we had to subtract, right? We had to find that total distance. And if I can subtract right this time, we have 45.5. We're going to subtract 20.5. And so we would get 25. That's the total between those two numbers. We want to divide them up into 5 equal classes. So if I take 25 and I divide it by 5, our class width is going to be 5. So we're going to add 5 each time. So we're going to add 5 each time until we get up to 45.5. Go ahead and do that. So again, we have 20.5, then we have 25.5, 30.5, 35.5, 40.5. We have to add a section and do 45.5. I think we've got 5 sections again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do we 6 sections? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5. So we can just go around. Let's do it again. You'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 just to make our life a little quicker. Now that you have your data sorted in their order, hopefully. How many numbers do you have in your sections? So between 20.5 and 25.5, we have 7. That's what I got. 7. 7 in my first section. Between 25.5 and 30.5 you have
2.
2. That's what I have. She's helping you out. Between 30.5 and 35.5 we had 2. 2 again. Between 35.5 and 40.5 we have 3. Yep, that almost looks like 3. And in our last section, between 40.5 and 45.5, 6. And that matches up with all the numbers I have, so we should be good. All right, so your histogram, it looks like a bar chart to help you out if you want to sort your data. You can either do it on the calculator or on Excel. That way it's a little quicker to count than if you just have to cross things off your list as you go. Oh, look at that. Now we're going to use our graphing calculator to draw a histogram. So it says, turn your stat plot on. Stat plot is up on the top. It's in blue. So you're going to hit second and y equals. And you have a whole bunch of plot things. we're just going to do plot number 1. So we want plot number 1 to say on instead of off. So if you cursor, oh nope, you just have to be on plot number 1 and hit enter. There we go. Then now I can change my choices. We want plot number 1 to be on. Right now off is highlighted, so I'm just going to enter so on is in the black box instead of off. So up here on the top is where your stat plot is. You have to do second function and the y equals to get that. Then we're going to do number 1 because we're just going to do plot number 1. So I'm good. Yep. And then we're going to turn it on instead of off. So again, we're just going to enter because we're already on. Now it's turned on. So on your screen, you should see the on blinking. So, cursor down to type. We're going to highlight the histogram icon and press enter. The histogram icon looks like it's about the third one under by type. Type is the next row down, so cursor down and then select the third one and again hit enter on it. It's blinking.
Which, or L1 or?
We'll get to that. We're not to list 1, but we'll get to that. Because we got to put our data into list 1. Type values into list 1.
Which one's the histogram icon?
The histogram one looks, it's a third one where it says type.
Okay.
It's a third one over.
Okay.
Okay? Now, I was nice, I think. Where did I get those numbers from? Were those from the previous ones or were those from a different one? I gotta look. 1. Nope, that started with 21. I probably used it on a different problem. It was one of our problems we did. Okay, we're going to have to type our data in because I used it. So now we got to do stat 1 to edit, type in our list of data. So again, if you have things in there, clear them out and type in your numbers. 7, enter, 2, enter. I think these were the first ones we practiced sorting. Okay, we got 23 there, so I can sort those out. I don't even know if I needed to sort them. I probably didn't even need to sort them because probably it sorts for me. It didn't tell me I had to sort, I just did it anyway. We type our values into list 1. Let me know when you got your values into list 1. You don't need to sort them. So it says after you have them in list 1, go to the zoom stat by pressing the zoom button and then the 9. So the zoom button is up at the top under the word format, right up the third one on the top, zoom. And we're pressing number 9 for zoom stat. On your screen should see your histogram. Now, if you're on your histogram, you can change the windows, but we don't need to. At least I don't think we need to. If we needed to make our window bigger or smaller, we could. Just for fun, I'm going to hit window anyway.
Mine
If you
says,
hit,
error.
yours says error. Uh-oh.
So wait, how do you go back to the thing?
Okay, so let's go back to your list. So I'm going to do stat and 1, and your list is in there. Okay, and then I'm going to go back up here just to check your stat plot. It's turned on. It's on a histogram. Don't know what's wrong
Maybe
there.
because the plot 2 is on 2?
Oh, yes, let's turn plot 2 off.
Okay.
That would probably be the error. Okay, now do your zoom and number 9 for zoom stat. There we go.
Okay, cool.
So if you're on your window, you can change the what your viewing is. You could change your X maximum or minimum to 0 or 10 or whatever you might want it be. The maximum, whatever your maximum number is. Mine looks like it fits pretty good on the screen, but mine says I have from 1 to 43 with a scale of 6 and various things. But if I go back to my graph, so I'm going to hit the graph button. And I hit the trace. The trace is also up on the top. By the way, the graph is on the top and the trace is on the top. Notice if you hit trace, if you're on the top of the first bar, it has n equals 3 down on the bottom. you have 3 in that section. If you error over, n equals 4, there's 4 in that section, and so forth, and it tells you the values that are in each of those if you use your trace function and just cursor over the top of your bar. So if you were trying to double check what you had done on Alex, you could put it in there and check and make sure everything matches up. So you got your numbers in, you're going to hit zoom, and you're going to hit number 9 for zoom stamp. There they are. If you hit the trace button, then, oops, there it is. Notice I'm on top of that bar, that's a 3. If I cursor over, there's 4 in that one, and so forth. So it says sketch your histogram below. Oh, there's what we can do. We can change our initial class boundary and our ending class boundary if we wanted to. I'm going to go to my window and play. So I'm going to make my x minimum 0.5 because that's my starting value. So if I hit window, my x minimum, I'm going to put 0.5. My x maximum, I'm going to use the 45.5. And then, since my class, I have 5 equal classes, what was my class width? I got to figure that out again. I think it was 9. Yeah, it was. Because remember before we did 45.5 minus 0.5, which was 45, divided by 5 is 9. So my x scale would be 9. Now if I enter that in and hit graph, now I've got the right class widths on my boxes. And notice my graph looks different. So, this one we would want to put in for our x minimum. This one we would want to put in for our x maximum. And then here we would have to figure out what our class width is by subtracting and dividing by 5. So we got 9 there. Now our histogram has the right class boundaries and class widths. That's under your window to change those. That's why we had that on there.
So do you want us to draw that?
So then you're going to sketch what you got on your paper. If I hit trace, my first one is at 6, looks like. Then 2, then 6, and then I can't go, it's 8, and then 1. So just sketch that on your paper.
How do we measure saving?
Okay. Yeah, there now it looks good. So now you're just going to draw that on your paper.
Oh, okay.
But if you were trying to double check what you did on Alex, you could put it in and do the histogram on your graphing calculator. Make sure you would change your boundaries by changing your window settings, and then you should have your histogram. So now we're going to do it in Excel. Now, it makes more sense to do it in Excel if you are doing some kind of actual data stuff, because in Excel you can print it out or put it in your document or whatever you might be doing. So we're going to go ahead and go to Excel here again, and I am just going to go to a new blank workbook. I should have a printout of your paper so I know what it says. So it says before you can use the histogram tool, you have to make sure that the analysis tool pack add-in is installed. Hopefully it's going to let us do this because I didn't double check. If you don't have administrative rights, we're going to see. So, to check to see if the analysis tool pack is installed, click on the data tab and look to the right to see if there's a data analysis option, which mine does not have. So, in order to install that, I would have to go to File, go to the Options, look for add-ins. I'm going to do that while I can remember that much. So up here, File, was it options? And then add-ins. Add-ins is down here. And I'm looking to see which one of those tool things they want. It just says, go to the analysis tool pack, which is just the top one, Excel add-in. So I'm just going to highlight that one and see if it works. Whoops. That's not what I wanted. Data. It's not even giving me an error. Click on the data tab. Options, add-ins. Oh, there we go. That's what I didn't do. Okay, never mind. I didn't hit something I was supposed to. Options. If I go to my add-ins and I click the analysis tool pack, I have to click go down here next to my Excel add-ins, and then I have to put a little mark in the box there. Analysis tool pack. And now I'm going to hit OK and see if it works. So now if I go to data, there we go. Now I have data analysis up on the top. Once you install it once, you don't have to do it every time, but if you hit go down here on the bottom, put the little check mark next to the top one there, and then hit OK. Now if you click on your data tab up on the top, it should be there. There it is. All right, anybody else having trouble with that? Nope, you already have yours half done. Because I'm slow, we got it in there. Okay, so click on that, click on go, and that's checked, hit OK. If you hit data up here, then it's over. Now you'll have all the statistics analysis that we can do. And you got yours on there, and you're trying to redo. All right.
This computer's frozen.
So, now that we have that on there, we hopefully can follow the directions on my paper. We're now going to create our histogram. Enter the data into the Excel spreadsheet in column A. Again, I would copy and paste them over, and then you'll have to type them. Were those the same numbers I used before? I think so. They are. Hey, I can use my first spreadsheet if I didn't clear out my numbers. I'm going to clear out my other stuff that's on there and get it out of the way. But I believe those are the same numbers from before that we sorted. So if you hadn't cleared out that Excel spreadsheet, you already have them in there. If not, you'll have to put them in there. So enter your data into the Excel spreadsheet. Enter your bin range, which is the values for your x-axis in your B column. So in your B column, those are going to be the values we would have put along the bottom of our table. We're using initial class boundary of 0.5, ending of 45.5, and remember when we had 5 equal class widths, we added 9 there. So in column B, you're going to start with your 0.5 and add 9 each time. And just out of curiosity, I'm going to see if I fill down if it adds them for me. Hey, it did, only I got an extra one because I fell down too far. So if you've used Excel, had Lori's class, after you've typed a few in, if you highlight and then grab that little box in the corner and fill down, then it automatically just adds your 9 every time for you. So in column 1 we have our values, in column 2 we have what they call the bin range, which is the values you'd want each of your things to be on. And then go to the data tab, click on data analysis, find the one that says histogram. So back over here on my Excel spreadsheet, so on the data tab at the top, data analysis, and then you gotta scroll down, well, you probably don't have to scroll, it's down on the bottom, we're doing histogram, hit OK. My input range, I'm gonna click and drag over column A. Those are my numbers. And once you get to the bottom, make sure you click again. My bin range is my column B. So I click on the top one, highlight, click on the bottom. Whoops, that didn't give me the whole bin range. There we go. My bin range, select output range for where you want your histogram to show up. I put D3 in mine. Click on the box next to chart output, put a check mark in the box and click OK. So my output range, I said I put in D3, and then I had to put a little check in the box that said chart output down there on the bottom. So my histogram page should look something sort of like that. My data from column A is my input, B is my bin range. This is just where you want your graph to show up. I picked D3 just for fun. And then you have to do the chart output and hit OK. Hey, look at that. Notice the labels do not line up nicely. Under the bin, change the values so they say up to in front. Now my son, he spent hours and hours and hours trying to move those labels so they lined up with the tick marks. You can't do it. It doesn't work. So if you just go to your bin range here and put up to, so that this section says up to 0.5, up to 9.5, then that takes care of my labeling issue as far as what goes in there. So I'm just going to click in there. I'm going to type in up to 0.5, and notice it updates my histogram there. And then I just added that in front of each one of them. And since the 45.5 is your last one, you can just delete out the more if you would like. And notice then I got rid of the more and that's not showing up there. Unless I really want it to show up, it doesn't really make any difference. It's kind of how you want your histogram to show up. Now, if you've done Excel, you probably know that you can click and change the headings, and if you knew what that was a graph of, you could change your labels and all of that fun stuff, so that if you were using it for some kind of report, you had the appropriate labels and everything on there. Everybody getting that to work out right? Oh, one other thing. That's not really a histogram, that's a bar chart. Did I put that on here? Oh, yeah. No, I didn't.
What's a bin range?
The bin range is the values that we would have normally put on the bottom of our graph. The starting one was 0.5, and then we had 9.5, 18.5.
So where do you want, how do you want me to do this?
So in column B, you're just going to start 0.5, 9.5, 18.5, up to your 45.5. If you want that to look more like a histogram, if you right click and go to, where was that at? I just clicked on it and now I don't have what I want. Oh, maybe because I was on that already. All right. Chart type? No, I don't want to change my chart type. There, that looks pretty. So if I right click, well, that's took off my labels. My goodness. Shh. Change chart type. Let me go back to that one where my labels were normal. Where was that? Wasn't format axis. Select data. Nope, that wasn't where it was. Maybe I have to be on the bars. There we go. It's hiding. So if I click on my bars and right click and go to format data series, it's hiding over here because it thinks. See, there's a gap in between there. If I change my gap to 0, now it looks more like a histogram. I put that somewhere. So if you want it not to look like a bar chart and you want it to look like a histogram, click on the bars so that your bars are highlighted, and then go to Format Data Series and change the gap width to 0. You don't want any gaps between the bars if you have a histogram. If you truly have a histogram.
I'm stuck here. Do I do this? Just press OK.
Histogram, output, range, override existing data. Yeah, go ahead and hit OK. Okay, let's see. All right, let's see here. Oh, see what you put your output range is overlapping with this. My output range, we put D3, so they're not on top of your data. And then we are going to do the chart output so that the chart shows up, so we've got to check that box. Okay, that's why it was giving you that, because you had it on B1 and that was on top of your data. It didn't like that. So we moved it over to D3. All right. Then we said here, if we click on the bars and right click, we can format the data series and change this to 0. And enter. And now there's no spaces there.
Okay.
The other thing you could do is on the names, if we add just up to in front of that, so that it doesn't look like this is just 0.5. Nope, you're going to type in the words up to. Oh, T-O, up to, not 2W. Not the number 2, but the word 2. Space. And then enter. Notice how it changed it. So this is the section that goes up to 0.5. This would be the section that goes up to 9.5. So I just added that in front of each of those, the up to.
Okay.
And that way your label matches more of what your data is actually describing.
I have a question. I don't know how that.
That is automatically on there.
Oh.
I deleted mine out.
Oh, okay.
You can leave it there, or you can delete it off if you don't want more to show up on your
Oh, okay.
thing. So yes, the more will automatically show up every time. You can take it out if you don't like it.
Okay.
You need your bin ranges in there yet. So we have your, data in there sort of, but I think we're, I don't know if you deleted something out of that front thing. I'm going to cancel that for a minute. Maybe it's just, I don't know what is up there. 7. It says it's supposed to be a 7. Well, we're going to try it. The bin range is the values that we normally have along the bottom of our histogram. So we're going to start with 0.5. Go ahead and type in 0.5. And we add 9 each time. So 9.5, 18.5, and so forth. Now what you could do is once you have a few in there, is you can use your pull down command. I got an extra one, I'm going to get rid of it. And then you've got them in there. Okay? So first column is your data, second is the labels along the bottom of your histogram. So now we go to data analysis. On the histogram, we hit OK. The input range is your data. The output range is your bin numbers. Then we said we want to kick out our graph. We put it on cell D3. That would be over here. Otherwise, we don't want it over here in A or B because it would get something else. But you can put it over further, wherever you want your boxes to show up. And we also are going to output the chart. So we click that, hit OK. These through there, why does it say it's overlapped here? It's not. We got some weird stuff here. Try highlighting that again. There we go. All right. So I was saying here, since this looks like a bar graph and on the histogram, I clicked on there. I right-clicked and went to Format Data Series and made this gap 0. We don't want any spaces. The other thing I did is over here, I added the words in front of that up to. So again, up to hit enter. And I did that in all of them because that gives you a better idea of what this is showing. I'm showing the values up to this, then up to that, up to that. So I just added those in front of you. Yep, and each of those just do up to. You can always play with your chart and see what it looks like. All right. Lori told me everybody's going to know how to do all this already because they took Excel. I said, yeah, they are. All right. Frequency polygon for our group data. Have to make sure I get my right numbers on the end. So it says the heights and inches for the sample of 19 male adults are as listed. Draw the frequency polygon for these data using an initial class boundary of 59.5, an ending class boundary of 84.5, and 5 classes of equal width. Label each class width with its midpoint. So on your histogram, you're labeling the endpoints. On your frequency polygon, you're just labeling the midpoints of each section. However, you have to find the midpoints of each section. So you really have to find what the end of each of your categories are. So like we did before, we're going to start off and we're going to subtract. We have our 84.5. We're going to subtract our 59.5. It must be 25. And I have 5 equal classes, so I'm going to divide that by 5. And so I'm going to just along the side list out what the end would be of each section. We were starting with 59.5. And if we add 5 to that, we would go to 64.5, right? We have to find the midpoint of that. How can I find the midpoint of my two numbers? Add them together and divide by 2, right? So if you take 59.5 plus 64.5 and you divide it by 2 for me, oh, that you didn't divide by 2 yet, right? $59.5 plus your 64.5 and then divide it by 2. 62. 62. Now I know that this midpoint is going to be at 62 then. Okay, my next section, 64.5 to, if I add 5, 69.5. The midpoint of that would be 67. My next section is going to be from 69.5. 5 more than that would be 74.5. So the midpoint of that would be 72. My next section is going to be from 74.5 to 79.5. So the midpoint of that is going to be 77. And we're not quite to the end because we've got to go to 84.5. 79.5 to my 84.5. My midpoint of that is going to be 82. Now, the next part is basically doing the same thing we did with our histogram. We actually have to count the values in each of those sections, and then we're just going to pull the bar up to that, or the point up to that spot. So again, we're going to put our data in, if you want to put it either in Excel or on your graphing calculator and sort it out, because we need to figure out how many are in each of those sections. So again, just hit stat 1, clear out your list, and then we got to put in all those 19 numbers. And then we are going to sort them. And look at our list. And then do our counting. So when we're counting or doing our counts, we're still thinking about, like we did with our histogram, how many values are in that first section between 59.5 and 64.5. So, how many are in the first section between 59.5 and 64.5? Anybody count them up yet? So, once our numbers are all in there, then we're just counting. How many of them are between 59.5 and 64.5? So from here to here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them, right? So, above this, we're going to grab this, we're going to pull it up to the 6. There's actually going to be a line that comes up and it's going to connect that to the 6. How many numbers were between the next section, 64.5 and 69.5?
Can we count 64?
64, well, is that, nope, you're not going to count 64 because it's 64.5 or higher. So you're actually going to go from 65 to 69.
One.
There's only one. So then you're going to put a mark here above the, whoops, at 1, almost, and the line's just going to connect there. Then you're going to count in this section between 69.5 and 74.5, which means you're going to go from 70 to 74.
6.
You got 6 there. So we're gonna mark the 6. You're just gonna pull that up to the 6. And again, it's gonna just pull your line up there. The next section between 75 and 79. Is at 4. And you won't have to draw the lines will just show up. And the last section between 80 and 84. 2. It's going to have that connected there, and I believe there is a line that when the computer shows up, then it just connects it down to the bottom. So it looks something sort of like that on your screen. Again, you've got the add or remove that you do there. So when you do your frequency polygon, you still have to do the sections like you do with your histogram. It's just you're just labeling the midpoints instead of labeling your endpoints. Where'd I put that? I put my marker down somewhere and it doesn't like me. All right, so number 14 then, same kind of thing. The following are the lengths of stays and days for a random sample of 16 patients. Draw the frequency polygon for the data using an initial class boundary of 2.5 and a class width of 2. So 2.5, if my class width of 2 would be at 4.5, and then I have to find the midpoint of that. Well, you probably know the midpoint of that maybe without having to calculate. Halfway between 2.5 and 4.5 would be 3.5, right? So our first section there. Our next section will go 4.5. Adding 2 to that would be 6.5. Halfway between there would be 5.5. Our next section would be from 6.5 to 8.5. Halfway between there, 7.5. Our next section would be from 8.5 to 10.5. Halfway between there. I got to figure out where my end is. I didn't look, but I got to keep going because I see I have 12s. I have a 13. So then we have from 10.5 to 12.5. Halfway between there would be 11.5. And this one we still have to go another section because we still have the 13. So we have to go from 12.5 to 14.5. So 13.5 would be in the middle. So we actually end up having to add 2 sections on this one. All right, so if you type your data in and sort it out, did you do that already? We got to figure out how many values go in each of those sections.
Mine is saying error.
Whoops. Here's the same here. Let's see what we got. Let's go to 2. Sort A. Oh, there's nothing in the list A to sort. You have to put what list you want to sort. So I don't know if you were really trying to sort list 1 or not, but I'm going to hit stat. Okay, that's our other list. Okay, we got to clear that list out and do a new one. All right, now we're doing those numbers.
Okay. Thank you.
So yes, if it gives you an error, you have 2 choices. 1 is to quit, the 2 is the go-to. I usually do the 2 to see what it brings up on my screen to see if I type something in wrong. Now, most of the technology activities will be with your homework stuff, but I wanted to go through the first one so you got used to using the graphing calculators and you knew what I was talking about, because I'll give you step-by-step instructions on doing these, because you can tell this is taking us a really long time to do. All right, do we have our list in there yet? Still working on it.
Maybe sort of.
Yep, you need to sort them, because then we need to find out how many we have in each of our sections. So from 2.5 to 4.5, how many numbers did we come up with? Just one. And then from 4.5 to 6.5, so in other words, from 4 to 6, how many numbers do we have? 5, that's what I got. In my next section, from 6 to 8.
So,
0, oops, I should have said 7, 7 to 6.5, 7 to 8. So there are none in that section. The next section, 8.5 to 10.5, so from 9 to 10. We have 6. The next section is from 10.5 to 12.5, so 11 or 12. There's 3 of them. And then my last section, 12.5 to 14.5, in other words, 12 or 13. Or was it, no, it wasn't, am I that one? 12, 13 or 14. 13 or 14, we just have one, right? 1. So, there's going to be a line over here, it's going to connect that, then go there, 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 and at the end there's going to be a line that hooks it down to the bottom again. You don't have to draw the lines. The lines will be there.
The last one was 0.
0, or the last one was 1. The number 13 would have been between 12.5 and 14.5. So there should just be 1 in that last section. All right. Oh, we got more stuff on here. I'm going to have to talk really fast. Not that I don't already. All right. While I'm figuring out the class boundaries, you guys go ahead and put the data in. You got the idea here, right? So, it says we have an initial class boundary of 13.5 and ends at 48.5. So that, if I subtract, it's 35 divided by 5 classes, so 7. Mm-hmm.
I keep doing the same thing. I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay, so I don't know what you have in there, but we are just going to clear that, and we're going to go to stat and 1 for edit, and those are the other numbers, so we're going to clear those out and type any ones in. All right. So we started with an initial class boundary of 13.5. The end was 48.5. So when I subtracted, I got 35. I had to have 5 equal class widths. So 35 divided by 5 was 7. And so those should be my class boundaries, 35.5 to 20.5. 20.5 to 27.5, and so forth. So on the first one here, if I go from 35.5 to 20.5, my midpoint is 17. Now you could do the midpoint the long way for each of them, but since I know my class width is 7, I could just add 7 to each of those, and that should be my midpoints. So if I take 17 plus 7, I would get 24 plus 7, 31 plus 7, 38 plus 7, 45, and I think that's as far as we need to go. I labeled my midpoints. All right, so now we have to do our figuring out how many numbers are in each section. So between 13.5 and 20.5, so from 14 to 20. How many numbers do we have between 14 and 20? 4. The next one, we're going here, so we're going to go between 21 and 27. 2. The next one, we're going between 28 and 34. 7. And the next section, we're going between 35 and 41. 8, there actually should be an 8, but since I copied and pasted, there wasn't. And the last one, between 42 and 48. 2, back down to 2. And again, the lines will automatically show connecting all of those, but I'm going to draw them in here quick. And my graph's going to look something sort of like that. All right, there was another technology thing here at the end. Using Excel to create our frequency polygon. So, going back over to Excel. Did I use the same numbers? Probably not. Let me copy those. So, put your numbers there in Excel. 62, 82, 79, 76. Wondering if that was one of our previous ones. 62, 82, yeah. So this one came from number 13. On number 13 there, again, it tells you you're going to label. Oh, I didn't label my data. I didn't label my column A. Go back and label column A. So I have to insert a row so I can put a name up there. Data. It says insert. Label column A with data, column B with midpoints, and column C with frequency. Okay, we entered our data into column A. Highlight the data in column A. Do your sorting from smallest to largest. It says you're probably going to get an error message. Notice when I do my sorting, I'm not going to highlight the word data. I'm just going to highlight the numbers because I don't want to sort the data word. Oh, I got my headings hidden. How did I manage that? Let me pin that again. Okay, so under the Home tab, if you go to Sort and Filter, sort from smallest to largest, and we're just going to continue with the current selection because we don't really want to expand it and have data highlighted. And that should highlight your list. I'm then going to get rid of my copying and pasting. So after I have that in there, it says enter your midpoints. So our midpoint, it says note, you must add an extra class at the beginning and the end of the with frequencies of 0 to anchor the frequency polygon. So if I go back over here, under my midpoints, remember this one is from problem number 13. So instead of starting with the 62, which is our first midpoint, we're going to add an extra set in front of there. And so since our class width was 5, if I subtract 5 from 62, trying to see where I wrote that down, 57. I'm going to start with 57. 62 would be my next one, then my 67, and so forth. Again, once you have a few in there, if you fill down, you should get what you need. We can stop at 87 because we want one extra one at the end. So when you do this, you want to have an extra category at the beginning and at the end so you have an anchor point for the ends of your lines. Then enter the frequencies in the column C. So again, we should have our frequencies from our number 13 problem. Our first one's going to be 0. That's our anchor point. And then we had on number 13, 6, 1, 6 again, 4, and I think that was at 2, if I can read straight across, 2, and then of course the end is going to be 0 again as my anchor point. So my data's in the first list, my midpoints in the second ones with extra categories at the beginning and end, and then my frequencies. Click and drag over the frequency column, including the label. So I'm going to highlight from frequency down to 0. I included that label. Select the Insert tab from the toolbar. Click on the line chart option. Select the first 2D line chart. So if I go over here, I'm going to go to the Insert tab. Over here are your recommended charts. Notice the one right here that has all the lines in it. Insert line or area chart. If you put your cursor over the top, a little box tells you what kind of chart it is. You want the one that says line or area chart. And then we're going to select the 2D option. Did I say the second or first? I can't remember what I said. I'm just going to pick the first one. I can change it if I want. Alright, then it tells us we have to change some of our data things. So, once we have the 2D line chart, we need to edit the chart. You're going to right click anywhere on the chart and choose Select Data. Select Data. And then we're going to edit the labels on our axis. So when we're going to click on the word Edit under the horizontal axis, and we're going to use the midpoints for those labels. So I'm going to highlight from 57 to 87. And then I'm going to hit OK. And then Now in this box, you should see that it says from 57 to 87, and if I hit OK, now you'll notice then now my labels are there for my midpoints.
Oh. Can you help me do this?
Flipping back and forth between my directions.
Alright,
So,
so select that,
yeah,
and then.
and then the highlight from 57 down to 87. There we go, then click, because I think you didn't click at the end. When you highlight something, click. Whoop. Oh, I know that's not doing it. We gotta hit edit first.
Oh,
Now let's do it. Okay, hit OK. Why is it only doing 2? I suppose because you clicked to 2 before.
right, should we just try again?
Let's see. Right click on this now and go to select data. And now click edit. Now highlight them. Hit OK. And hit OK again. There. And now we got that on there.
And then, I'm stuck here. I just put
Okay.
2D in here.
Oh, wait a minute. No. I don't know what you're on. We highlighted this. Highlighted frequency column, right? That was here. Click and drag over frequency column, including the label. Then we're going to go to the Insert tab, which is up here, and go over to the charts, and we want the line charts. Okay? We want the 2D line chart, so I just picked the first one. Okay? Now, notice this says 1, 2, 3, da da da. We really want those to be our midpoints. So we're going to right click and do select data. We're going to edit those and use these instead. Hit OK, hit OK. Now you see we have the right numbers down there. All right? All right. Then it says here under the edit, or click edit under the horizontal category access labels. Oh, we did that. Shh, that was something. Da, da, da. Oh. Chart layout. That's what I was doing there. So if you would want to label your graph, you can do the chart layout. If I click here and notice up on the top, there are some quick layouts. I think I picked this one right here, down on the bottom corner, because then you had the name and you could title your axes and all of that. I think that's the one I picked. And what did we say? Label the horizontal axis heights in inches, the vertical axis frequency, and change the title to frequency polygon. So we just went over here and clicked on what we wanted to change. The horizontal axis we changed to height in inches or something like that, if I remember right. The vertical axis we changed to frequency. And the title, which is up on the top, we changed to frequency polygon. I could capitalize so it looks cuter, but I'm not going to. So, if you were putting it into a document or a report, then you have it labeled all nicely and have your categories all correct and so forth. So yes, if you want to change any of those, you can just click, highlight over the top to get rid of it, and then type in whatever you want there. Just like you would edit when you were typing in Word, hopefully. Alrighty. Well, we're not done for today, but we're done with that. I'm going to give you about a 15-minute break. That took me much longer to do than I thought it would. Turn the lights on, so prepare your eyeballs.
Can I ask you a question? Did you change this title right here?
Yes, we changed that to just frequency. It was on wherever that paper was, but we changed it to the word frequency. The vertical axis we changed to frequency.
Okay.
So just click and drag over the top, or that might work too. I always highlight it first, but maybe you can do it without doing that. It looks like it did.
I'm gonna go is classes for me.
Okay.